I would say you shouldn't start a business if you don't have a mindset that's willing to go through adversity. And so if you've got a background where you've been abused, your parents have left you, you saw divorce, you've been beat up by loved ones, taken advantage of, you are the perfect candidate for running a business, because those who have experienced chaos knows how best to work through when chaos happens. It's a fact, man.
And our next topic is about accountability. Hold yourself and others accountable for their actions, commitments, and results. Foster a culture of responsibility and ensure alignment between individuals and organizational goals. What is the best way to hold people accountable, Josh?
Hold yourself accountable first, because if you're only holding other people accountable, but you're not holding yourself accountable, it's very difficult to end up checking in with somebody. And so the best way to hold someone accountable is to first go in and ask them, hey, did you see what happened in this situation? Or can you help me understand? We've had team members here that have stolen from the company. And so we go to those team members and you say, hey, can you help me understand what happened with this credit card, this transaction, what exactly?
And the new shoes.
and the new shoes. And then you get to hear what they have to say. And then you can say, hey, help me understand how you got there. Will you tell me more? And you listen. Hey, can you tell me more? Hey, this makes me think, does this sound like this? And so basically you're leading them to share what just took place. And at the end of the day is you end up saying, you put it in their shoes, and then you end up asking this question with what, because they end up saying and sharing, hey, I didn't know, or hey, well, if you didn't know, then you have to look at yours. So they can say, I didn't know I couldn't purchase some new J's with the company card. And then you have to say, man, we got to put that inside the manual when we end up hiring people that, hey, you can't steal. But then you're like looking at everything. But then you say, hey, well, even if you ran a red light, but you didn't know you couldn't run a red light, you still ran the red light. What should be the consequences for this? What should the punishment be? And you can throw it into theirs. So if you don't have a 3 strikes, you're out system, you can end up asking them, hey, what should we do in this situation? And let them share, because the punishment they share might be worse than what you were wanting to go to. Right. And then you if you're a good leader, you've already kind of decided 2 or 3 outcomes that you can hope for. And you're basically driving that conversation to find out, are they going to take accountability for their actions? Then we want to keep them on the team. If they want to deny, I didn't, not take responsibility, there's only 3 things that someone can do when they are confronted with behavior. They can deny it. So if I like knock this thing over, pour it on your lap, and then you said, Josh, you just did this on it. I'm like, I didn't do that. So you can deny it. Sure. You can be like, yo, Scott did it. Scott,
pass to the buck.
It wasn't me. So you can blame somebody else. Yeah. Or you can end up saying that's me. Yeah. If they have any other response than, yo, it's me, then you need to maybe think about helping them find another place.
I feel like you're preaching to me right now. I feel like
I don't
not in a bad way, but I feel a little convicted about some of the things. It is difficult to hold people accountable when you're not clear on expectations and clear on your communication. And so as it relates to the 3 C's, constant, clear communication, it's not just constant communication. The clarity part is vitally important. And so let's just say that a team member is doing something that maybe was mentioned very briefly in passing as they're showing, like, it's very difficult to hold them to a strict standard when you haven't held your own self to a standard of clear communication. And so from there, if that's the situation, maybe the conversation looks like, hey, I mentioned this in passing. I understand that it wasn't clear enough for you. How can we together find a way to make sure this doesn't happen again? And then let's make that the standard. Yeah. Bring them into the solution.
And then let me give you another thing that you can do. And one of those would be, go ahead and have chat create you an accountability form. And if you don't have another pressure washing company that's mentoring you or helping you, just go to the internet and Google or use chat and say, hey, I need an accountability form, because after the situation happens, you need to document it. You need to at least say, hey, we had this conversation in regards to this subject, and this is what's going to happen the next time this takes place. and then both parties save it, and then you give it to somebody in your company that won't lose it.
Yeah.
Because if you're the leader of the company, chances are you have a million things you're keeping up with. Try to find a file or somebody that can end up helping it. Then that way, the next time it happens, it's not, hey, I thought we had this conversation before. And be like, yeah, I think we did. Yeah, I don't know. Do we have any forms? And then you can look up inside your files.
Yeah.
You'd be like, bam, Josiah has already been warned 5 times about this situation.
About looking too good.
Yeah, looking too nice. And it's time to make things right. And
Yeah.
we need to let him find another place,
Mm.
maybe another pressure washing company. That would be a great spot. Not for you, but maybe for somebody else. Yeah, I'm not speaking to you right now.
Oh man, that's so good. Something that we can all learn from. Let's jump into the next topic and let's talk a little bit about resilience in the face of challenges and setbacks, maintaining a positive attitude, persevering through obstacles, and motivate others during difficult times. Man, welcome to owning a business.
Yeah. And I would say you shouldn't start a business if you don't have a mindset that's willing to go through adversity. And so if you've got a background where you've been abused, your parents have left you, you saw divorce, you've been beat up by loved ones, taken advantage of, you are the perfect candidate for running a business, because those who have experienced chaos knows how best to work through when chaos happens. It's a fact, man. Dudes that have gone through difficult times and ladies who've gone through difficult times, they're resilient.
Yeah.
And you've learned how to reshape whatever you're thinking.
Sure.
And so now it gets into a mindset game of how you have frameworks. And there's been times where I've had a conversation with folks that have been in our network, and I'm like, dude, we are working with different frameworks. And that person said this, what do you mean by that? And I'm like, well, we work on a different framework. And he's like, I don't even understand what you're saying. And I'm like, when I say something and do something, this is what it means. It means I'm going to follow through and I'm going to do what I said I'm going to do. And man, there's so many people in this world that you do relationships with what they say and what they do are inconsistent. Why it's so important to maybe study the folks that you invite into a relationship before you invite them in a relationship. And, you know, this goes into your idols or who you end up listening to or influencing you. It's easy to admire somebody from afar. And a lot of times you're looking for a savior from someone that's a long ways away, where you need to grow or planted. And I had that for a lot of my life. But inside this framework, you want to know, when bad things happen, do I have the ability to work the muscle to say, as it results for this bad thing happening, I'm going to make the most out of this opportunity. And so it's an opportunistic mindset over the sky is falling mindset.
Right.
And so what you say to yourself in the midst of something that happens to yourself ultimately determines what you end up doing with yourself.
That's so good. If you're just now joining us, we are talking about leadership development inside of our company, specifically as it relates to being resilient. And so if you have a story, if you experienced a moment in time where you have had to overcome a challenge, drop that in the chat. But I've got a quick story about this. And, you know, most of my leadership lessons have come from you. So thank you for being, being,
this is why you're resilient.
Yeah. Those are the hard times that we're talking about. But I've shared this story before, but there was one time where I was on a job site with Mr. Kevin Varnado. If you're watching, it was me and you, and we had this boat trailer that we converted with plywood, or you did converted with plywood. We had water tanks on there, and we had the water filling up the water tank, and Kevin goes to check on the water level. We're cleaning this lady's home, and he steps on the trailer to look into the tank. And when he does that, it splits the trailer in half.
Yeah. It
breaks the trailer totally in half. At this time, I'm 18 years old. This is probably like the 4th job I've ever done in my life. So I do what every resilient person does. And I call my boss. I say, hey, Josh, the trailer just split in half. I don't know what to do. This lady's customer's house. We still got the house, blah, 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 blah. And I'm panicking. I'm like, hair's on fire. Don't know what to do. And I remember you pulling up and you were walking down the driveway just smiling. And I'm like, Josh, how can you be smiling in a time like this? The trailer's split in half. And you said, unless there's bullets flying over my head or I'm burying someone, it's not really a big issue. And so some of the key lessons that I learned inside of that experience was you took ownership. So in the 3 decisions, it wasn't like, hey, what did you do? It's not my fault that the trailer broke. It was, hey, let's just take ownership over the situation. Let's get through it. Second was, you didn't give the situation more drama than it was requiring. You weren't like, oh my gosh, you're right, it is broken. No, it's like, all right, this is kind of where we're at now. Our back is against the wall. We just have to move forward and make decisions.
Yeah, if you're listening to, like, we weren't $1 million company back then. Like, this was my first boat trailer that I converted for $300. Like,
Yeah.
This was the thing that
This was our rig.
I drove somewhere with a Honda van, grabbed it from a guy I met on Craigslist, brought it back to the house, sanded it down or pressure washed it, grabbed paint, painted the whole thing black, ended up mounting 2 water tanks, one for chemical and water tanks are cheaper than chemical tanks. So 2 free tanks, one for the chems, one for the water. I had a garden hose rail.
Yeah.
We're not talking about $400
Titan reels. Yeah.
Titan reels. We're talking about the thing that you get at Tractor Supply. And so we're talking about something that cost us everything, so my wife and I, we took out 2 $3,500 PayPal loans to make this dream a reality. And this was the situation that happened when he was 18 and you're 24 now.
25.
You're not 25.
Yes, sir. How old are you? 60?
I'm like 75.
Okay.
And so we were not rolling then. So it's important to recognize, are you in that situation? Have you spent all your money, all your resources, all your time? And you might be like, well, you don't know what I've been through, or you aren't where we are. We were where you were. We do know what it's like. But remembering that this life is not going to last forever. And things like pressure washing are baby conversations. I had worked for a church at that time, and that means we were burying people. We were talking about things that are hard to talk about around the staff table. And pressure washing is just, something you work through and you solve. So I want to encourage you. If you haven't built a resilient mindset, it doesn't mean you can't build a resilient mindset. Start with baby steps. Start with encouraging yourself and setting up habits that are hard for you. Do something that you've not done before so you can start making it through things you ain't made it through before. So
join us live every Monday at 9 a.m. Central Standard Time for more content on how to grow and lead your business.